Welcome to Familiar Territory, an anime podcast hosted by two white dudes who've been friends for over 15 years. Here we talk about the history and influence of anime, as well as review anime new and old. So grab your talking cap and transform into some comfy clothes as we step into a familiar territory. My name is Grant.
And I'm Brantley. Heads up, spoilers on the way. Check the description, see if you're safe to listen.
Hey Brantley, would you like to purchase a used anime?
Yes.
I have an anime with 0 APR, no down payment, no character development, and an absolute shit show of a premise. And it's called Upon the Pleiades. Brantley, do you want to explain a little bit about this show?
I can sure try. This show, here's the thing. You've got your gears in place, and they're pretty good gears. But, like, something's misaligned, and they don't really mesh well together. And so the engine's kind of a clunker, but, like, hey, you got a lot of cup holders, and you've got more than one outlet to plug in, like, some phone chargers, you know? It's got the little, like, the little coat hangers on the inside of the car, so you hang up something in there.
Right. How much room does it have in its trunk?
You know, I was thinking the exact same thing. You're gonna love this. Hardly any at all. Oh man, Grant, did you remember anything about this show?
I actually,
because I'm struggling.
I actually remember one thing about the show, and I remember the ending actually being weirdly good.
Yes. I agree.
I have found the official website of this show, and it's great.
In Japanese.
It is in Japanese, and I can't read any of it. So, Upon the Pleiades is a magical girl show that was made by Subaru.
Well, not made by Subaru, but like sponsored. Something.
This show would not have been made without Subaru, is what I'm saying. Gainax wasn't
Seemingly,
like
yeah.
Gainax wasn't like, hey, we have a show about girls riding brooms that make car noises that go to space. You know what? They might have, now that I think about it. Now that I just said it out loud.
Not modern day Gainax, I don't think. I think you're onto something here. Do you think the show would have been better if they made their own car noises as they flew?
Yeah. Hey, Brantley, I think this has a movie.
It does?
On the website, I can't read Japanese. On the website, it says movie. And it has preview videos, but I don't know if it actually has a movie. So, this show, we thought it had a canon lesbian relationship, which is why we were excited about it.
Yeah, I gotta walk it back. I'm real sorry, everybody. Like, gonna be real with you here. I'm gonna level with you. I saw a clip of the show, like a spoiler in the last episode, I believe. Where one character kisses another, and then all the other characters kind of react suddenly, and everyone gets all flustered and everything. Because the character being kissed had like shoulder length hair and was voiced by a Japanese voice actress. I mistook this for lesbian opportunity, and it in fact was not. I'm sorry. So much like the anime community at large, we and now you have been effectively Yuri baited by this show.
Hey.
Not intentionally, but it happened.
So the movie is in production right now, which means enough people watched this show to be like, hell yes, give me more of it.
Was it the show that they watched, or was it all the merch that Subaru's making bank off of?
They only have one figure for the show. I looked it up. And it's
but there's Blu-rays, there's apparel and stuff. Surely more in Japan.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, whatever. Maybe we'll cover it when it's out.
We absolutely have to. So the Upon the Pleiades Blu-ray is $30.
Wow, that's cheap.
That's cheap as shit for a anime Blu-ray. I found.
Do you think you can play that DVD as you travel in your Subaru in your little like in-car DVD player?
Getting 30 miles to the gallon on highway. Hey, Subaru, sponsor us. We might be better than that shit we just watched. That's
30 miles to the gallon for $30 Blu-ray. I think there's a numerology thing going on here. I don't know.
God damn it. So let's stop making shitty car puns, and let's talk about the show.
Great. I have a great question for you, Grant.
Yeah.
Name the characters.
You have Subaru.
Yes.
You have Aoi.
Yes.
You have Minato, who's the love interest.
Mm-hmm.
You have Itsuki, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe is the black hair one, and you have the alien, which is called the Pleiadian. I don't remember the purple haired. I actually just brought up the wiki. So all those.
How about Blondie?
Blondie, I didn't know it before I opened up the wiki.
Right?
It's so weird because, all right, when we first started watching this one, we thought there was a canon lesbian relationship. So we're like, awesome, sick, good job, Subaru. And then they didn't. And then we saw the opening, and the opening's really sick. It has like a bunch of...
I love the visuals.
It's so good. And then the rest of the show is pretty bad.
The visuals are like a car commercial.
Oh my god.
Where you see the sky reflected in the background, you know?
Jesus.
Like it's going on the windshield. Oh.
I hate that.
But like it's good.
It is
like,
good. It is good. And
good parts. Doesn't really come together.
So the show is about a girl named Subaru who wants to start a club that looks at the stars. And for those who are not really into astronomy, the Pleiades, which are also known as the Seven Sisters, are actually the emblem that Subaru uses in their logo. They only have 6 stars or 7 stars. They should have 7 stars. And they're actually a star cluster up in space. They're pretty faint, and you can only see them in certain lights. They're really cool, and there's a really cool Native American lore about them. But beside the point, that's why it's called Wish Upon the Pleiades, because of Subaru. And so Subaru wants to start an astronomy club because she fucking loves space. And so she's like, well, I'm going to go to school and meet all my friends because it's her first year in middle school. But her best friend, Aoi, went to a different school. Fuck. I have no friends. So then she meets a boy that she's like, oh my god, he's cute. And they're like, hey, do you want to start the astronomy club? And then things get whack. So right off the bat, the show has interdimensional travel because an alien who's just known as the president or the Pleiadian I was like, hey, you guys gotta help me find my ship parts so I can go home. And they're like, sick, let's do it. So they get their ship parts. The boy character's like kind of like Quiche from the one show.
He's a little bit of your bad boy, but he's more moody.
Yeah, he's a lot more moody, but he's like bad boy, hot boy. It's fine. It's a lot of tropes in terms of that, but other than that, it's not. But there are...
He definitely adds to have him in there. I'll say that.
I think besides Subaru, he's the most notable character. It really does suck because you get some Aoi stuff. She's Subaru's friend that moved to a different school. Oh, first, forgot to mention why they're all together. So the Pleiadian, the alien, is like, hey, I brought you all from different dimensions to this one dimension. So they're all in different universes. And this is the one where they're all together. And because of that, Aoi is hanging out with Subaru. And in both of their universes, they went separate ways. And they're all sad about it. But they're like, hey, we can be friends again. So they're friends for a little bit. And then that plotline goes nowhere until the very end. And I think that's a big problem. There's a lot of cool plot lines with this. They have issues with the speed of relativity, they have planetary hopping, they have a lot of cool shit like that, but it doesn't have impact. All right.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point. It has like the theory of like getting this stuff right, but for some reason it just kind of feels like, oh yeah, that works. It could be the origins of the show. We didn't watch the original net animation, but those were 6-minute episodes before, and I don't think there were many of them.
No,
there were only 4. Yeah, so you had essentially the ONA was the full length of basically one episode of the full anime. Wow.
So I'm gonna fire off some questions to you, Brantley, about the characters.
Okay.
How would you describe Subaru?
Subaru is pink.
She is.
Subaru is your pink girl. She's your Yuki Yuna. She is your Madoka. She is your Kiriel. You know, she's basically, you know, like high spirits, clumsy. In this case, she is the version that has, you know, a particular hobby, which is space, which I like that she's not into cars, she's into space. That's neat. And she likes strawberry milk.
She does like strawberry milk. The advertisement for this show is not as blatant as I hoped. I was hoping to get like some just straight up like where they use magic powers and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to cast this power," and it's like Subaru Outback. And then but no, it's very I don't want to say subtle because it's still a little in your face. I mean, the main character is named Subaru, for God's sake. But it's not as like, this is like, if you didn't know it was a Subaru show, you would just think it has some weird obsession with cars.
Yeah, we were watching this and we saw like maybe one car that wasn't a bus, and we couldn't even determine if that was a Subaru.
I want to let you know that the way that Subaru is described on the wiki, well, not on the official wiki, but on Wikipedia, is Subaru is the clumsy main protagonist, and that's it.
Yeah, basically. But that's kind of all you need in a way.
Yeah.
It's like weird. It's like I can't fault him for it, but it's just not also. It's just kind of it was it is.
Now,
but
what about
real quick?
Oh yeah, go for it.
I do want to take a quick tangent. Do you think this show even like qualifies as an advertisement? 'Cause I'm struggling to call it that.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's advertisement, but it's definitely one of those. It's definitely sponsored, but I wouldn't say it's an advertisement. It is its own thing.
Mm-hmm. This is like more subtle than some product placement is in certain instances of shows. You know, or like you'll get like right in your face Pepsi, you know, or something like that. And then like here it's just kind of like they're actively trying to hide it.
Yes.
It's weird. Did the brooms have like a logo on them?
They didn't have the logo, but they had like a little colorful like grill mark, but that's about it.
Why did this show like censor itself? This is like the anti-Tiger and Bunny.
Yeah, it really is.
This show was directly sponsored by one producer, Subaru, and you almost can't even tell. I think if I watched this show when I was younger, when I was very much into like oh, I'm gonna be a different anime watcher and like trying to be a pedantic critic and all that, I probably would have recommended this show to people just based on the fact that it's like got really decent points and that the advertisement isn't as upplayed as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I would probably swear on that and tell people, oh, you have to watch it. Like, I'd probably actually make a recommendation.
Hey, yeah, I probably wouldn't, but I understand why you would. I do want to say that Wish Upon the Pleiades is Gainax's last show they've worked on.
Oh, wow.
They haven't done anything since 2015, which is when the show came out. They're now working on another show, a movie trilogy called Zero Century, which is based off of Captain Harlock. But that's it. Like, they haven't touched anything. I wonder if they are rolling in Subaru Monday, so they don't need to worry about it.
I don't know about that. But hey, I mean, they are making a movie too, so.
Nah, Gainax is not making the movie.
Oh, ooh.
According to Wikipedia.
That's a rough break. Yikes. Well, sorry, Gainax.
Now that we've talked a little bit about everything and got off script, what about Aoi? What do you think of Aoi? What's her personality?
Aoi.
Is that how you pronounce it?
No, I just making a dumb joke.
No,
but like, yeah, you're saying it right.
Sick.
Aoi. Yeah, she's fine. She does her job. I think I don't want to call it like fetishistic, but it's not. But it definitely feels like they're putting it on strong. Like, she's easily embarrassed, and they use that for like, a butt of her jokes and character developments.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really feel very human sometimes, but for gag purposes and for keeping the show lively, it helps because the other characters are pretty neutral in comparison. Even for, say, the Pleiadian, the captain, and for, Nanako, speaking through, for the captain, I guess it would be president, class president, that's what they refer to. But even then, like, her shouting as, like, that sort of upbeat voice isn't really, like, it doesn't have a lot of impact once you get used to it. It's kind of like, oh, this is how this character talks. And then later they subvert that by realizing, her translation voice acting as the Pleiadian is really totally different from how she normally acts.
We're not on Nanako yet. But we're not there.
I
know you want to talk about her because she's the one that has the most fun to talk about.
Sorry, I did a little warp there.
That's okay.
Which is what the characters taught me how to do. If you have if you're nothing, then you can warp through space.
Yeah, we can talk about the weird sciencey things they have there.
Do you want to make it through the rest of the characters? I'm sorry, I keep stopping and starting this car. Okay. Hikaru is fine. I like her episode, even if it's kind of silly.
Is hers the one with the
piano? Yeah,
the piano.
And she comes up with the last note, and you pointed out to me like that's extremely obvious.
Oh yeah.
Any musician worth their salt would have at least tried it.
Yeah, it was basically I think it was a half skip up or a full skip up from the note he played last, and he's like, I can't think of the note, and it's like, dude, you literally probably would have accidentally played it.
Yeah. The way I interpreted that was that like it was less about he can't come up with it, and more about having that like choice paralysis.
Yeah,
on it.
That makes sense.
And so feeling like, oh, but is it right? Is it wrong? Is it too simple? And then the innocence of the child steps in and says, yeah, I like this note.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of hokey. And that's okay for this kind of show. Itsuki is like...
Do you know how Wikipedia describes her?
Oh no, how?
It's 3 words. A kind girl.
Itsuki is there.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, the Wikipedia doesn't describe him all that well. It describes Aoi as Subaru's friend who's often worried about her attitude. Hikaru is a frank girl whose father is a pianist. And then Itsuki is just a kind girl. That's it.
Wow. They didn't even mention her big hat.
Yeah, she does have a big hat, and it's great. Until
they have this swimming episode, then it's a little hat.
Which is the only good part about that swimming episode. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about Nanako too. And each of the characters get their own little episode besides Subaru, who gets like all of them. So Itsuki's episode is that she fell off a tree when she was a kid, and she got a scar on her forehead, and that's it. Like they play into it really well because is that the one when they're on the sun or Saturn?
I think it's Saturn because she's flying through the debris and one piece hits her in the head.
Yeah, that's
where
right.
Her scar is.
Yeah, so it's all about like, oh, face your fears, grab the piece. Hikaru's is about her and her father's piano. Nanako is the only interesting character in this show.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say, there's a lot of anime dads in this show.
There are, and I love anime dads.
That's good. Continue.
Nanako's episode is pretty dope because it's about her, because her family splits up when she's really young, and it's about her, and that's also the episode where she flies through space for half a year.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because you thought that it would have impact. She's like, hey, they have to go to a planet that's outside the solar system, and at this point they're like, hey, that's going to take a long time, but we can travel at the speed of light, so it'll only take about 6 months. And they get this part right, where if you go faster or closer to the speed of light, time gets real funky, And so they're like, well, it'll only be like a day and a half for her, but for everybody else, it'll be half a year. And then, so all the characters are having this time where they're getting closer and they're bonding, because they have 6 months without her, and they have 6 months without being magical girls. And it has her do like a flashback to her father, who is a really good dad, who's just trying to make her happy. And then it has about her little sister, her little brother, and her little sister or brother, I can't even remember which one it was, which is not a good flag for this show.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom traveled around the world, so she learns all these different languages, and because of that, she's able to adapt to the Pleiadian, the alien, the club president's speech. And so it's really cool. And I honestly like her little goof where when she's translating the president, she also translates all the emotions by throwing her arms around, and that part's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree, she doesn't talk enough outside of that for it to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of attach her character to the president for like most of the show.
It's like flying close to the speed of light. They're approaching it, right? They're approaching that moment of impact, but never quite get all the way there.
Yeah.
You know?
And at the end of the episode, when she travels back to Earth, also, it's really weird because the show likes to be science-y. It likes to talk about the speed of relativity. It likes to talk about, planets and their atmosphere and their gravitational pull. And then it never uses it, and then it just breaks it for the plot's sake. Because after she goes to this faraway planet, she gets teleported back to Earth, and she gets teleported back to when she left. So it was only a day and a half. So this entire 6-month period disappears, and they start back over. And the only thing that really happens is they have to take a test again. Oh no. It's not good. But it was close. It was probably closer than I would even say like Yuki Yuna. I think a lot of it's like you said, a lot of the parts are there. It's just, I don't know if it had too many episodes or not enough episodes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nothing episodes, though, which we can talk about when we kind of go into a little bit more of the plot structure. But the characters are meh. And they have some fun designs, but they're nothing to write home about.
Mm-hmm.
So, goddamn, I'm loving the wiki. So the wiki is really, really small, and on the Itsuki page, there's there's 2 comments, and it's just one person named Subaru Star who probably has created this. 104 edits, which I assume is all of the edits on this wiki, and it says a picture of Itsuki. To me, it's easier to put the picture in the comments, so yeah, XD. You know what? Good for this person. But it's a mess. It's a mess of a show. I can't. So this
show feels like it was written by 2 people.
It might have been.
One person did like the sciencey front half, and then they had to tie it up. And so they just said, I don't have time for this. And then they just faked it with, like, contrivances. Said, they all warp back. And then that's where everything falls flat. I don't know.
According to Wiki, it was written by one person.
Well, I wonder if there was, like, a committee thing going on where, where Subaru or someone gets in the way and they're like, no, this doesn't have any heart. It's too sciencey. Cut that out and put some heart back into it. It's like, okay, by the power of love and friendship, they all warp back home and everything resets.
Yeah. I mean,
it feels like this is someone's dream project that was, like, creatively controlled. And they did everything in their power to spite the person controlling them.
Well, it's really weird because the guy that did it is Shoji Seki. And he was he's done a lot. Like, he was the storyboard for episode 3 of Fooly Cooly. He was the episode director for episode 3 and 5. He storyboarded some Hitamari sketch episodes. He was the storyboard for basically almost all of Gainax's, like, shows. He did
flagship stuff.
He was the storyboard for Pucci Pre Usi. for episode 1. He did a few storyboards for Gurren Lagann. He seems to be Gainax's kind of like go-to, like, oh, let's get him on board. He'll help. And I'm sure there's plenty of those, but it's really weird that he was the director, the scriptwriter, and the storyboard for Wish Upon the Pleiades. He's like all of them.
Wow. Talk about some lean production on this. Holy cow.
It had a lot of producers, but I'm wondering if that's where it kind of got messy. I'm wondering if you had a bunch of producers who are trying to get, make sure it's this, make sure it's not too offensive, make sure it's, there's a lot of fluff for it being only a 12-episode show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm also noticing attached to the O&A, at least from my anime lists reporting, it splits it down into like 3 different companies, all with like the same kind of name. There's Dentsu Razorfish, and Dentsu Tech. Like, I don't know how those separate. Maybe they're different wings of the same company. But they've each worked on different shows. Some vastly different, seemingly from one another. Like, Dentsu is involved with a ton of stuff, but Razorfish and Tech don't have much. Like, Tech has 9 listings and Razorfish has 2. And they're just Pleiades. I don't know, man.
It sounds like there's a lot of cooks for this stew.
But not a lot of creatives on staff, seemingly.
Right. It feels like the show was supposed, which makes it even weirder to me, because it feels like the show was supposed to be just a commercial or supposed to just be sponsored content, but it doesn't feel like that when you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also feels like it was held back by it.
Yeah, it's almost like they approach Saiki-san, make us a commercial. He says okay, and they come back. He's like, I made a show. And they're like, what the fuck? We told you to make a commercial. What is it? Why is this so big? What the hell? We said it like a net animation. Like 4 episodes, 6 minutes. Man, he's like, yeah, I wrote a show. Like, I see it. I'm not gonna read it. He's like, you should read it. I wrote this. He's like, no. We asked you to make a commercial. What is all this? This isn't what we asked for.
It's pretty interesting because there are some pretty Gainaxy, or at least classic Gainaxy things. They use the speed of relativity, which they use in Gunbuster and Diebuster. They go to space pretty quickly. They don't wait. It's like right away. They do a lot of space fights, although the fights are pretty lame. There's no spells. It's basically just a game of catch the ball and catch it before the bad guy gets it. But the show kind of pops off at the end. And I feel like we need to talk about that real quick, or at least for a little bit. So at the end of the show, you find out that Minato, the boy, has been in a coma for like ever. And him and the president actually were the ones that were collecting soul fragments or something, which are like human emotion, to give him power to collect the space parts, which is cool. And then you find out that he never was actually out of the coma. He's been in the coma the entire time. And he was brought to this like pocket universe to do this by the president. And when they were about to collect the final soul fragment, he freaked out because if he did this, he would disappear. And he didn't want that to happen. So he trapped the president in a rock, which was later found by Nanako. And so it's like, you have this really weird interdimensional travel with basically like illusions, although and because of that, the boy Hinato could like cast magic in this universe, which is why he was able to kind of stay in this magical form and collect the pieces against the main characters. And then he opens this pocket dimension where he's both in it as Minato and as the bad guy. And it's super confusing and super weird. But when they do utilize that, that's when you get the best stuff. There's one part where in one of the Aoi episodes, and the Aoi episode, both her and Subaru have a charm that they made and gave each other when they left. So because this is a pocket dimension where they're all existing at the same time, Subaru and Aoi both realize that in their universe, they both gave each other the charm, because they only have one charm, and they gave it to each other separately. And it's touching. You're like, oh, even in, they both care about each other, even in their respected universes. And then at the end of the show, they go to a black hole to get the last piece, and doing so, they travel back in time for 4.4 billion years to the beginning of Earth. And then they're like, well, that's it. We got all the space parts. And they hold hands and they cry. And at this point, Brantley and I didn't really understand what was happening.
Mm-hmm. It took me listening to you walking through it verbally to sort of catch up.
Yeah. And essentially what happened is, because they were in separate dimensions, once they found all the space parts, they had to return to their primary dimension as to not fuck with the space-time continuum. So they will obviously they might see each other again with the movie, but at the end of it, they're like, well, that's it. We're done. We'll never see each other again. At least this version of us. And so they have their memories. And then as you only see what happens to Subaru and Subaru's universe. You don't know what happens to anybody else in their universes. And you see a little bit. You see, like, Nanako become better with her father. You basically see the plot ends of all their storylines.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's weirdly emotional. And then you see Subaru, who hasn't talked to Aoi, like, for a year in her primary universe, finally go up to her and be like, hey, let's be friends again, because this sucks. And you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? And then you also see her meet Hikaru and Nanako in her universe. And you're like, oh, even though they're not the same, they still become friends, which is wild to me. It's such a wild idea that when it utilizes, it's fucking cool. Mm-hmm. It's so exciting. And then they barely touch on it. For like 90% of the show, you totally forget they're from different universes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really blew past me originally. I didn't put it together until way later. But I mean, it still had impact. It's just that, like, yeah, in one way that the show respected that I would figure it out. And I'm glad they did, because it had more impact once it sort of came together, I guess.
I do forget they were given the option to stay together. Minato basically said, hey, we're at the beginning of time. You can start from the start of time together. And they all said, no, we want to go back and be ourselves, which is sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm kind of upset that they didn't say, like, hey, by the way, here's my address, come check me out sometime. But then again, that's far more dramatic this way. This show is kind of melodramatic.
It has a lot of
melodrama.
You talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weird sucker for melodrama. I liked the scenes where they'd sit down with Minato and just kind of have a talk about something thematic, and then that would usually be in the form of some kind of visual metaphor. It usually crops up into, I haven't changed at all, I should change, which, like, weirdly doesn't totally make sense, because they insist that throughout the whole show, despite the fact they've been giving everyone dedicated little mini character arcs. But it feels like the show is almost speaking a different language in those times, whether the translation can't really do it justice. Right. But they're there, and I like them.
Yeah.
How do they fit in the big picture? Sometimes they don't, but
That's kind of the problem with this show, is that there's a big picture. There's a huge picture. There's like a literal universe level picture. But they focus so much on the details that you never really get to see it. There's a cool part where they and once again they kind of throw it out the window, because near the end it's like, fuck that space travel shit. We can now teleport.
Grant.
Yeah.
What matters about this show?
It has pretty much the standard magical girl motif where friendship matters, being yourself matters, changing yourself for the better matters. But it doesn't do it better than any other show. It's really funny that you think of all the stuff it talks about, and it's never going to be the best. It never was supposed to be the best. It was obviously created to kind of sell merch. But anything that happens besides the ending gets negated. You have, let's be better. Let's not be such a bitch. Let's be more brave. And it might happen. But then it kind of falls back into its comfort zone. You have a lot of melodrama between Subaru and Minato, which I think you're right. I think that is one of its strong points. I think their relationship is dramatic, and it's fun, and it's cute. But none of the other characters really exist except to make Subaru better, except for Nanako.
You know what? This show reminds me of, horoscopes. Where, they're vague enough that you can definitely apply it to yourself. You can say, you know what? I've got a little bit of Subaru in me. But you've also got a little bit of Itsuki in you as well. You've also got a little bit of Aoi. And a little bit of Nanako. And it's and then you're realizing, oh no, it's just kind of covering its bases, huh?
It really is. It's very tropey. It's very and
it has standout moments, but it's undergirded by tropes and basic things. It's not offensive, except for episode 3.
And I think some of the
also
better
that one time Subaru looked directly into the camera and said, "You watching right now, Brantley McCord, you are a bitch."
That was really weird. That was very weird.
And she reached through and she honked my nose real hard. And it was
yeah, it didn't happen on my screen, and you were just crying.
You only heard it, yeah.
It was super bizarre.
Kind of killed the mood of the night, honestly.
Put a bad vibe in the air.
What a U-turn.
God damn it. It was actually more of a K-turn because it was very, very jarring and not smooth. One of the things about the show that were good, there are some times where Minato and Subaru just kind of went through different parts of outer space, and it was beautiful. The space scenes were animated really, really well. I mean, they weren't animated well. Oh, I just remembered something awful.
Oh, you did.
I did
too. It came into frame suddenly and jarringly.
Oh, God.
Like something that it's not supposed to be there almost.
All right. Let me finish my thought. We can talk about that. Yeah. The backdrops for this show can be really gorgeous, and I kind of wish we got less characters and more of just Subaru and Minato doing their thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the animation. The show is mostly 2D animation, and it's serviceable. It's new Gainax, which is kind of, you can tell that Gainax lost a lot of their talent when Trigger was made.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of still frames. There's a lot of poses. It's
some
fine.
Impressive bits.
Yeah.
So it's pretty on par, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's very serviceable. The
all y'all who watch anime, you have to appreciate how difficult it is to do things like turnarounds and animated backgrounds and things like that. It's not very, very time consuming, and they don't have to do them. So I want to give credit where credit's due. It's not like this show is a total wash on animation. There's plenty of little details and things that they did bother to do when they didn't have to. They could have gone by anyways.
Yep, I'd agree. Except for sometimes they're in 3D.
Yes.
And it's terrible.
It's just, yeah.
It's bad 3D. And it's really jarring because sometimes adding CG to your animation it's always going to be jarring. But in Aldino Zero, which is not a good show, but the mechs being CG isn't bad because you don't see the mechs in 2D,
Mm-hmm.
So they fit, and it's it's something different. It's this. But these characters are in 2D most of the time, and it's not even during action sequences they're CG. Zombieland Saga, they have some CG moments, and they're bad. I'm not gonna lie, they're god awful. But it's always during songs, so you're always oh, here comes the CG. But for some reason in this show, during random scenes, the characters are just really, really bad CG. They don't look like their characters. They don't have the same proportions. They don't move very often. And there are times where it's super unnecessary. Like, there are times where they don't move, and it's just them flying through the air. And it's weird that they didn't... And it's not like they're moving in the air. It's like the backgrounds are moving, and their CG model is standing there. And it's really weird why they didn't just do like a standard 2D model with them standing there and then move the backgrounds.
Yeah, it's weird. As you said, it's not consistent. It's not like, oh, here's the part where the 3D models kick in. It's like it's not like, oh, it's during the transformations, or oh, it's during the action sequences. It's just kind of randomly at certain parts. I can only provide conjecture on why it is this way, but like if I had to make a conspiracy theory guess, it would be that a larger amount of the show was animated with 3D models first, and then they drew over them. You'll see like the recent Berserk anime was mostly 3D, but in the Blu-ray, more of it is 2D. They actually went back and drew on top of it and like, outgo the 3D models. So there is like a sentiment that the 2D is superior and the 3D is kind of the backup option. But it is clearly a backup. It is not like up to par with how the 2D animation looks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'd agree. And there are times where it like Land of the Lustrous is a really good show, and it does CG really, really well. It looks really pretty. And they kind of do that cheat. They don't cheat, but they use, rock girls. They're made of rock, so they can be stiff and they can make click noises when they hit. But it looks good, and they utilize it completely. It's completely CG. And I think it's fine if you do that, but it's really weird when you make these jarring cuts to it. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, yeah. This show's.
I know we said when we were watching it that if it would have been 3D more often, we could have adjusted. I don't know if that's true in retrospect, but like, I don't know. It makes me wonder. I'll say that much.
Yeah, the CG models were bad. If they focused more on them and they made them look better, then maybe it could have been fine. But really, it was pretty.
The fact that you go from a low frame rate animation, like in 2D, to a very, very, very fluid 3D model, like that's definitely like, even if they just snapshotted those 3D models and then like, reduced the frame rate on them, Guilty Gear style, like I feel like that would be better, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Speaking of out of place things that don't belong there and kind of make you raise the old eyebrows, do you want to finally touch on episode 3?
I do want to talk about episode 3. Yeah. You explain what it is.
Episode 3 is the swimsuit episode.
Does it take place on a beach, Brantley?
No, not really.
Is there any reason for them to wear swimsuits?
Yes.
Does it last the entire episode?
Yes.
This show doesn't have a lot of fan service. There's no panty shots. There's no weird angles. It's pretty.
The transformation scenes are all tame.
It's
a G-rated show.
Yeah, except for episode 3 is very, very horny.
Very suddenly.
So essentially, one of the pieces is in the ocean, so they got to go to the ocean, and they're like, "Oh, we can't go in the ocean wearing our uniforms," which doesn't make sense because they go to space wearing the swimsuits. So they all transform into swimsuits, and it's weirdly disturbing. Like, you get a boob bounce, you get a butt shot, and then it's just the show's regular again.
You get Tiny Hat.
You do get Tiny Hat, which is cool.
That's a good thing.
That's the best part about it. It comes off the way that Brantley was talking about it. Is that the OVA apparently was a lot more fan servicey.
The ONA, I am stealing that from someone's comment, so hopefully they're not leading us astray on that.
we do seem to trust comments a lot and then get fucked later.
Yeah, I guess we just have to watch the O&A, huh?
Maybe. But I can see how maybe when they first made this show, they wanted it to be a little bit more edgy, and make it a little bit more bad. and I think that maybe that was their original marketing ploy, and then when they turned it into a full-blown show, they took away most of it. And it's really weird because it also has one of the best shots in the show, and it would have been 100% better if they weren't in swimsuits. So in the show, there's a part where they're silhouetted against space, and they're all holding hands, and it looks really cool, and it's really cute. And then, but you're like, oh, they're all in swimsuits, and it makes it very uncomfortable, and you're all looking at their butts, and you're like, I don't like this at all.
And it's tough because it's like, on one hand, in character, you'd want them, like, it makes sense that they would want to wear swimsuits that, you know, make them feel pretty, or, you know, that like cute swimsuits. Like, yeah, I've known people / you know, had family who like cute swimsuits, you know, and I don't really get that, but they're into it, and I'm cool with that. And it's tough when it comes to media like this, because although this is indeed meant for consumption by that same audience of people, there is like a complicit factor here in which the characters and whatnot are being designed by adults working on the show to present them this way. And I think that's where I problematize the situation, you know, because at that point you start looking at the swimsuits and you look at the staffers and you say, why did you do that like this? You know?
Right.
Answer's money, probably.
100%. And it's a little weird because, like, Yuki Yuna had a swimsuit episode, and it was not that sexualized. They just wore swimsuits. And it was like, okay, that makes sense. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to do a beach episode, but given the context, it can be fine. But this show, it wasn't. And it was definitely... And it was a very unneeded episode, so if you're like, I kind of want to check out the show that was sponsored by a car company, you can very much not watch that episode.
Yep.
And you won't miss anything. Which, to be fair, is a lot of this episodes. So we've talked a lot about this in the past episodes. And it's about which character had the most impact. And obviously, it's Subaru and Minato. So, I have a question regarding the characters, Brantley.
Yes?
So, usually it's like, which character would you remove? What character does anything else?
That's a mean way to frame it. Are you asking who puts work in, basically?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I kind of think they all do. Not a lot, but, like, I think Aoi's a pretty big, like, plot mover for the show.
That's fair.
She has multiple character arcs at the beginning, to the point where I was questioning whether every character would get their own dedicated arc, because it felt like it was, like, imbalanced, where Aoi and Subaru were getting more arcs than the other characters. And I thought, oh, maybe it's not like a pattern, maybe it's just kind of they're doing whatever. Yeah, so I think that Aoi puts in work. If I had to rank like that, I would say it's, you know, Subaru and Minato, and then Aoi, and then Nanako, and then I think maybe it's a tie, and I'm not counting, you know, the Pleiadian in that. I guess I group them in with Nanako. Yeah, so that's my rank order, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, I am hiding the fact that I already forgot Blondie's name.
It's Hikaru, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to say Hikari because I knew that was from Review Starlight.
Yeah.
Well, then in that case, I can just go back and edit. No, I'm kidding.
So do you think? So what would you recommend the show to anybody, like for any reason?
Honestly, yeah. Like if someone's looking for fluff, it's pretty fast. It's got some idiosyncratic parts to it. It has like the anime willingness to go way too far, and to kind of go beyond expectations in where the plot goes. And so it's a soft introduction to that I think the magical girl genre is really good at, depending on where you look. So I think that, like, yeah, I could recommend it to some people. Maybe not anyone I know now, but if someone was looking for something, delicate and, like, kind of airy to just kind of get you by, nothing that's going to stress you out, then yeah, I think this show has a place. It is very light drama, and I think that is valuable to have in a way.
Yeah.
How about you?
I thought about this today at lunch, and it kind of made me think, well, if you're looking for just like a very light magical girl show, so a lot of the shows that we talk about have something either go off the rails one way or another, or are very traditional.
Mm-hmm.
This show's a little bit of both. It's fairly traditional with some out there ideas, and I think that's worth checking out. I feel like it's better to watch with your friends, especially when you get that initial reaction when the brooms make car noises. And they talk about like their safety features and like getting a learner's permit. It's fun to kind of see where they kept their car support themes. Mm-hmm. I did by the way skip through the O&A. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem to have nearly that much fan service. I mean, there's not even like the swimsuit episode's not even in it. Well, so it's fine. Although her key to unlock the club room is a Subaru car key, so that's fun.
Was that in the version we saw?
I don't think so. If it was, I didn't notice.
Wow, I wonder if they backpedaled it. Maybe that's what was meant by fan service. Was like,
there's a little bit more
not horny, but like it's about like just generally servicing fans. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. What do you feel about this now that you've sort of recapped it and everything?
It's a 6.
Yeah.
It's a 6 not because it has anything problematic. Like a lot of things, like a lot of my issues, like Yuki Yuta or like Shield Hero, are like this show has some good moments, but it's incredibly problematic at parts, and it doesn't do anything. This show doesn't do anything, and it's not that problematic besides one episode. Mm-hmm. And it has some fun moments, and I like space, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I'm stuck on themes.
You're always stuck on themes.
I bring this bullshit up every time, but hear me out. I don't know what they were getting at with that whole, like, you are nothing kind of theme, and then, like I have to change. I don't know where they were trying to take that. I don't even know where they ended. So maybe I need some help on this. So I'm going to try to lay out what I figured out, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so here's kind of my bullet points. So first idea is, well, it's about the potential of kids, right? Mm-hmm. You start and you are a nobody because you could do anything in the world. And so you have limitless potential until you decide you want to do something. Then you are losing degrees of freedom. That, in fact, is a big Gainax plot point in a certain show, which we might cover later. But for right now, just know that I've seen this out of Gainax before. But then this kind of fights with itself because, like, it feels like what they're putting forward is, if you want to move forward, then you have to shed that limitless potential. but like the whole point of limitless potential is that it's limitless. So it's not really limitless then, is it? I guess it's just extremely expansive potential. So okay, fair. You have a kid and you have all these, potential branches they could take in life. And that's sort of emblazoned in all the students, all the magical girls coming together into this one place, right? And then, hey, you're gonna make choices, and that's gonna happen, and that will drive you apart. But like, before you're making some of those choices, you also get an instant warp by the power of the heart, which kind of seems to undo that a little bit, because then like what's the point of, like, you made a choice and that choice was to instantly warp to someone, so like you're demonstrating that there's not like a limitation being put on here. You're just as capable as you always were. It's just that now it's more intentional and more focused. Like, I don't know. So and even then, like, before this show even begins and they're still saying, you are nothing and therefore you've got this potential, they already had diverged. At least Subaru and Aoi and the rest of the characters didn't even know each other as far as I can see. I don't think there were any of them that were friends besides Aoi and Subaru across that set of 5 people. And so by then, even in their young age, they'd already made choices, or more likely had choices made for them, that caused them to diverge. Like, sure, Aoi wanted to go to a different school, but also her parents probably had something to do with that. And Subaru's parents had something to do with what school she went to. These girls exist at all because their parents created them under certain circumstances. And so that's a choice being essentially, made, and then they're, implicitly a part of that choice. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that they come together because of a greater external power, but greater external powers are what separated them in the first place. And it all feels contradictory and wiggly, and like, from the beginning, you only get limitless potential with privilege. Like, they were privileged to have been picked by the Pleiadian to join up. Not everybody got that. And it just so happens that, like, they're, not terribly, like, in unfortunate circumstances or anything. They have their difficulties, but, like, for the most part, what they get is an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is like a big dent in the fender, sort of, is like, you get to have limitless potential, but let's be honest, it has to do with privilege, too.
Yeah.
So, no. I don't know if this makes any sense, but here's what it comes down to. The actual takeaway from all of this is that anything is possible with privilege, and privilege is something that's granted by systems of power. None of this means anything to the people who didn't have that privilege, who didn't get contracted, and they, after having their power removed from the system that was including them, they all have to go back to their lives without the Pleiadian. They lose that privilege. Privilege is only granted to you by those in systems of power, aka the Pleiadian here. What I mean is, the Pleiadian is a venture capitalist who is enlisting the child labor of these girls in a work program for privileges, and then pieces out.
Jesus Christ, you probably have put more thought into the show than anybody else.
I am looking directly into the microphone as if it's going to do a damn thing for me.
Hey, you know what I just found out?
Huh.
Apparently the drive shafts are based off of the Subaru legacy. There you go. That's all I took from the show. Wanted to sell me Subarus. Although, I'm gonna be real, I don't know much about cars, but damn, have I wanted a Subaru for a long time.
Hey, we never mentioned the whole lesbian thing.
Oh shit. So okay, this is
Story
important.
time.
So this is important. So I thought this show had lesbians in it. So Subaru in the 90s, this is a very... I thought this was just them kind of continuing this marketing. And it could be, because there's some undertones, but nothing quite...
It lined up too well.
It would have... What?
It lined up too well.
It lined up so well, and I'm so upset it didn't.
The stars aligned, Grant.
It did. It would have been so good. So, in the 90s, Subaru was falling behind in the car sales. And they went to their advertisement board, and they're like, all right, we are top sellers to 3 people. Foresters, teachers, and lesbians. And so since this was the 90s and homophobia was rampant across the world, they're like, well, we can't outwardly advertise to lesbians. So what are we going to do? And so they put together a board to create subliminal messages that only lesbians could see. So that's not to say that they like snuck in like things that lesbian vision allowed you to
Sapphic
see.
vision. Yeah.
But they allowed...
Is that the queer eye?
Oh my god.
It's like your LGBTQIA plus Sharingan.
So what happened is they were like, all right, well, we need to sell them. So what are we going to do? So they decided to put little puzzles in their advertisements. So they would add like a reference to a specific date that's important to lesbian history, or they would add like, I think one of them they reference Xena the Warrior, which had like lesbian representation early in the 90s. And then they basically did this entire thing where they would sneak in little things that only people that were... they hired women to portray lesbian couples, and the ads didn't get good reaction. What worked were little winks and nudges. So I'm reading this. This is from The Atlantic. They would go... they would put out like taglines like "Get out and stay out," or "It's not a choice, it's the way we're built."
Man.
And so apparently, as they did this, the gay community, specifically the lesbian community, were like, hell yeah, absolutely. And John Nash, who was the creative director of the ad agency, was getting feedback, and apparently they liked deciphering the codes that were put in the Subaru ads. So, and because they did this in the 90s, straight people didn't know. And we were so happy when we thought, oh man, Subaru made a lesbian anime, and they didn't. And it made us so upset because
knowing that they were involved in making something large, aka lesbian ARG, pretty upsetting.
They called this gay vague. It's gay vague marketing, and apparently they were the first to do it, and then other companies kind of adopted this.
Mm-hmm. And then Folgers was like, I have another idea. And then we're like, what? Oh, no.
Well, and like...
no, not that. Not that direction.
Oh, God. I forgot about the Folgers ad. The weird...
Do you think you'll find it if you just type in the Folgers ad?
100%. Look it up. If you haven't seen it, it's a weirdly incestual vibe Folgers ad.
Oof.
Because when I was a kid, I thought they were dating, and then
Folgers ad for
so,
anime. Folgers supervised anime.
And the thing about Subaru, God, that actually is a hypothetical I need to talk about.
No,
it's not specifically Folgers, but I will ask you about it now because you brought it up. But like, and the thing is that Subaru, while they didn't advertise outwardly gay people in their ads, they did a lot of support. So they would sponsor pride parades. They created the Rainbow Card, which is a cashback offered donations to gay and lesbian causes. They hired Martina Navratilova, who was a former tennis pro and a lesbian, to appear in Subaru ads. So essentially, Subaru not only advertised to the lesbian and gay community, they also did a lot of support. And it's really cool that they did that. And it's really disappointing that they didn't continue that with Upon the Pleiades.
Yeah.
So, Brantley, do you have anything else to say before we move into the hypotheticals?
Yeah, I do want to just sort of, like, lay it out here. It did take me, like, 4 or 5 episodes before I realized that the brooms and the headlights that are on them are shaped so, like, the negative space makes the shape of a car. I played it off like I knew, but I didn't know.
Well, it's all right, because I'm gonna be honest. For like the first 3 episodes, I was too busy playing Magic the Gathering to really pay that much attention. I did pay attention, just not enough to get those little minor details.
Magic and magic.
So let's talk hypotheticals. Do you have any written up right now?
Oh, you know I do. What car company would give you the power to transform?
So I've only had one car my entire life. Because I'm poor, I'm 25, I don't have a very good job that pays well. So I can only afford to buy cars off my parents when they're done with them. And my family fucking loves Jeep. And I fucking hate Jeep. So, I had a 2002 Jeep Liberty up until last year, and now I have a 2009 Jeep Patriot, and I hate them both. The Liberty I spent, I think, like one summer I spent $1,200 just to maintain it because it's a piece of trash. And obviously I didn't like spend like $1,200 to fix it at once. I'd be like, oh, I'll put on new tires. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll replace the axles. Oh, I'll do something to the engine. I'm not a mechanic. I don't fucking know how to work with cars. And every time I just sunk money into this car that was just almost exploding. And by the time it was finally dead, I was like, shit, now I gotta get a new car. My mom's like, well, I'm gonna get a new Jeep. Do you want to buy my old one? And I'm like, sure. I got a Jeep Patriot. So I feel like I wouldn't be sponsored by Jeep. I would just accidentally become a Jeep magical girl. Mm-hmm. And I would just
be all cindery about it, yeah.
I would hate it. And my powers would be getting terrible gas mileage and fucking breaking down constantly.
Mm-hmm. You'd step out of your Jeep and you'd do your transformation and you would be Jeep themed. You'd just be like, Ma! And you get all mad.
Now I kind of want that. I kind of want a show sponsored by Jeep and all of them just suck.
Hey, you were looking for cheap and you got Jeep.
Here's the thing, I don't know a lot about cars. I really don't.
Me neither. Awful cars.
Awful. And I hate Jeep. Like it's the only car opinion I hold is that Americans make bad cars and Jeep are the worst. Mm-hmm. Also car memes are terrible. I love truck memes because they're so bad. They're incredibly homophobic and incredibly overly masculine. Mm-hmm. And I love that people share them unironically. I love truck memes because they just give you like a peep into the eyes, the mind of someone whose entire personality is based around what they drive.
Mm-hmm. It's a little drive-in theater experience, except the theater is playing someone else's like homophobic experiences on loop. I was gonna say that my car company would be Ford because Ford memes aren't funny like me. I know that restating a meme through voice is not nearly as funny as actually seeing the meme, but I'm gonna do it.
Okay,
this is one Ford meme. I can't recount it exactly, and I have such a hard time finding it. But it was something along the lines of like Ford drivers will always be late to the event because they had to park in the Louvre. Like the museum. And that was it. That was the whole joke. And it's a picture of the Ford truck parked in the Louvre. And I just love the compound effect of like insisting that someone who drives a Ford is expectedly gay, and that gay means that you go to art museums and park your car there.
It's so bad.
Runner up to the Willy Wonka one where he's normally he's got his head resting on his hands, but instead of doing the format, it just says, "Oh, you like Ford? You gay bitch."
It's so dumb.
I live for it. It's amazing.
It's so weirdly homophobic, but like it's
like, wow, you live like this? This is awesome.
It's so
show me more.
Ah, man. I have people on Facebook that share those memes unironically.
Oh man, who are the biggest assholes? Not like who are they the biggest assholes to, but who are they ride or die for?
Okay, I've never so it almost is always Chevy versus Ford because like I think Toyota makes some trucks, and I know that they're like very good trucks, but they don't make like a ton of like affordable trucks. So it's always Chevy and Ford, and on my Facebook list, it's always the Chevy people picking on the Ford people. And yeah, so that's I guess they're pretty affordable. The 2001 Toyota Tacoma is only $26,000. But like it's there's a weird obsession with trucks that no other car and Jeeps. That's the thing. People who love Jeeps fucking love Jeeps, and people who love their trucks fucking love their trucks. And it's super weird. I mean, I get it. I get like people that care for their cars and take care of it and why they care for it and why they love it. I think that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. But this weird like fandom war for trucks is just so silly to me. So maybe I have
being a structural outsider, you know.
Yeah, and
Jeeps take the whole top off thing. Trucks have the bed in the back.
Yeah, I don't know. If I were maybe more into trucks, I'd get it. I guess it's kind of like console wars, but for car people.
Yeah.
Although the people that normally share the console war memes are also the people that share the truck memes.
Now, those Chevy people who just rail on Ford drivers, what kind of anime would they like? What kind of anime would they be ride or die for, really punch down on?
They absolutely would like the first season of Pokemon because they grew up with it, and One Punch Man, and that's it.
Wow, what a critical hit, dude. Damn.
and Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
But not Dragon Ball Z Super. Or the original Dragon Ball. Just Dragon Ball Z.
They'd watch like a few episodes off of VHS, you know.
Yeah. So I have a hypothetical for you, Brantley.
Okay.
You are now a director at Gynax. Congratulations. You have a very stressful job ahead of you. And we all know that KFC is weirdly popular in Japan.
Yes.
The Colonel comes up to you. And he goes, "Hey, we need to make a KFC anime." What do you make for the Colonel?
What does the Colonel smell like? Is he close enough?
Yeah. He's he smells like the secret herbs and spices.
I get down on my knees and put my hands behind my back, and I turn around and just wait for him to pull the trigger.
Oh man, what?
Get it?
What?
Trigger?
God damn it!
Got it! That was not intentional, but I pulled it off. Thanks. You can thank me for your shitty ass question.
What? Bullshit. This question's good.
This is super good. KFC. Let's see. What's the angle? What's the theme here? I feel like it would have to be an action show.
Okay.
KFC's already made like a dating sim game. Like they've made like a partially software VR training sim. They're in for like the pop crowd. Okay, so it has to be Battle Shonen. I think it's gonna be a collection quest for learning the quote unquote 11 secret herbs and spices, but each one of those is a different technique. And so if you do all the techniques in sequence, then essentially that is the most powerful technique. But only Colonel Sanders knows it. So they have to seek out Sander Sensei, and find him. And essentially it is an 11 episode show, and every episode is them trying to find him in a new location, and then he teaches them one of the techniques.
God damn it. I'm mad that I'd fucking watch it.
Oh, man.
Is it weird that I also thought Battle Shonen for a KFC anime?
Not at all. Not at all.
Alright.
Hey, man. You know what? They never combined their powers to make a 6-seater in this show. This show blows. Said this.
So do you have any final thoughts for Wish Upon the Pleiades?
Nope, that was it.
Alright, thank you for listening to our very long and kind of messy episode for a messy anime. Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you like what you heard, please like or comment or subscribe.
Oh,
or if you're
stick around if you're interested.
Oh, right. Fuck. See, I fucked it up.
No, it's okay. You were choking back tears, so like you were trying to get to the end. Hey, next time we're gonna be watching Decadence. That's a new one, and not a magical girl show. Grant, do you want to say anything about that really quickly?
So I've seen the first episode like 6 times. Because I keep telling people, dude, you gotta watch this show because it's fucking weird. And I've only seen the first episode, but it's about post-apocalyptic humanity lives on a giant moving tank. Girl wants to be part of a squad that goes in and fights monsters. They use the monster blood for fuel. It seems pretty cool, and apparently it gets real fucking weird, and I'm all for that. So if you want to join us in our adventure, you have about 2 weeks to watch Decadence. It's on Hulu, I think. It might be on Verve too, but I think I watched it on Hulu, which is it's not a weird place. Hulu has lots of anime. But give it a check out. If it's not on Hulu, it's on Verve. And with that said, thank you for listening. Do all the things I said earlier, or fucking don't. We're not your dads.